Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are really unpacking a powerful set of strategies, stuff for mastering personal development and, well, success.
We're diving into some material focused on principles for success and personal evolution.
Right. And the central theme here, it really feels like urgency. How do you proactively manage your growth when the world is just moving incredibly fast?
Exactly. And this material, it's less about just motivation, kind of rah-rah stuff, and much more about the mechanism, how things actually work.
Okay.
We're pulling out actionable frameworks for, well, everything from leveraging what looks like a weakness.
Turning it into an advantage.
Yeah, precisely. To setting up systems that basically guarantee progress. And also understanding why taking decisive action is so critical right now, especially with, the whole digital landscape.
So our goal then is to take these big ideas, maybe a bit high level or philosophical, and boil them down.
Make them practical.
Practical knowledge you can actually use, maybe even this week. We'll explore how your mindset really defines what opportunities you even see.
The kind of counterintuitive secrets to systemizing habit change, battling your own internal limits,
The ego, yeah?
and why just doing something execution is more vital than ever.
Right. So let's jump straight into that first big idea, mindset shift.
Okay.
The principles lay out this really powerful, almost backwards argument. It says initial disadvantages, maybe lack of money, not enough experience, being an outsider.
Things we normally try to fix.
Exactly. Things you'd think hold you back. The material says you should see them as a tremendous opportunity.
Okay, logically that feels wrong. I mean, we spend so much energy trying to get rid of disadvantages. Why frame them as a good starting point?
It all comes down to psychological freedom,
Mhm.
really. Think about it. What stops established people or companies from taking those big, necessary risks? The kind that lead to huge growth.
Fear of losing what they have.
Precisely. It's the perceived downside. They're
Yeah.
protecting their comfort zone, their revenue, their reputation, all that stuff they built up. It acts like an anchor. Oh, okay. So if you're starting with, well, not much to protect, you don't have that anchor.
You bypass it completely. You're psychologically free, unconstrained.
Right.
And that freedom allows you to test things at a speed, a velocity that the established players just can't match.
Because they're worried about the fallout?
If you have nothing to lose, you can try strategies that have, say, a 90% chance of failure.
Wow. Okay.
Those kinds of risky plays are completely off the table for someone who's got millions in revenue they need to protect.
Yeah.
And this freedom lets you find that 10% outlier win, the nonlinear jump that nobody else even dared to try.
Wait, though, isn't there a huge risk here? I mean, where's the line between being aggressive and unconstrained and just being reckless, foolish?
That's a really important distinction.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crucial. It's not about ignoring risk altogether.
Okay.
It's about shifting the frame, how you think about risk. Aggressive growth, in this context, means taking calculated risks. High risk, yes, but potentially high reward bets that are unique to your situation, your lack of constraints.
Okay. Calculated risks. Got it.
Foolishness is taking risks that offer no real learning, no potential for that asymmetric upside. The principles really stress that while the disadvantage gives you freedom, the execution still has to be smart. You iterate. You embrace the freedom to move fast, sure, but you're always gathering data, learning from what happens.
Okay, that reframing disadvantage into tactical freedom, that's powerful. So let's move to the next step. Once you've got the right mindset, how do you actually systemize growth, personal evolution?
Right. The material is really emphatic on this point. Behavior change isn't mainly a fight of willpower.
Oh, interesting.
It's a battle of environment. To break a habit, especially a deep-seated negative one, the absolute first step, non-negotiable, is changing your environment.
That's something I think gets missed a lot. People feel like failures because their willpower gives out eventually.
Totally.
But this suggests willpower is like a battery. It's finite, and the environment constantly drains it. So maybe we should stop trying to just tough it out.
Exactly. Stop trying to grit your way through and start redesigning the context, modifying the environment.
So how do you do that practically?
The material advises creating specific tactical little mechanisms, like implementing single-step barriers to bad habits.
Single-step barriers, what does that mean?
Okay, say checking social media constantly is the problem. Don't just decide not to check it. That relies on willpower.
Right.
Instead, put the phone physically in a drawer. Turn off all the notifications. Move the app icon into some folder buried 5 levels deep.
Make it harder to do the thing you don't want to do.
Exactly. Make the undesired action require an extra conscious physical step or even just a cognitive step, while you make the desired action, maybe reading a book or working on a project, the default. The path of least resistance.
That's clever. Engineering the context so the right choice becomes the easy choice. But okay, setting that up is one thing. How do you sustain it, keep the motivation going? That brings us to gamifying personal growth.
Yes. And for this audience, people who follow this stuff, gamification isn't just silly badges or leaderboards. Not here.
Right, it's deeper than that.
It's about leveraging your own internal chemistry. The source material specifically talks about using immediate, pre-committed micro-rewards.
Micro-rewards, like tiny instant payoffs.
Exactly. To establish strong dopamine feedback loops. The goal is to make the little hit of satisfaction, the emotional payoff, arrive literally seconds after you achieve some small defined goal.
Not weeks or months later when the big prize finally shows up, because that's too far away.
Way too far away. We're bridging that gap between the effort you put in and the reward you feel. And this absolutely requires having clear metrics.
You have to measure it.
If you can't measure the system, you can't keep the enthusiasm going. It just fizzles out, whether it's, I don't know, lines of code you wrote, pages you read, number of client calls you made.
Whatever it is for you.
Whatever it is. Those instant metrics, seeing the numbers kick up, that provides the internal validation you need. It keeps that engagement loop spinning and stops the whole process from feeling like just a long, gray chore.
Okay, so we have the mindset, we have the systems.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the destination. Success itself. The principles challenge the standard idea of work-life balance. Why is the material skeptical about that? It seems like a worthy goal.
Well, the document suggests that balance is often maybe a bit of a misdirection.
How so?
It can be a societal idea designed more for maintaining the status quo, keeping things comfortable, rather than for really pushing for a gradual evolution or growth. If you're truly deeply invested in a mission, especially one that comes from your own sense of purpose, trying to force a perfect 50-50 balance often means you have to cap your output. You limit what's needed for, world-class results in that specific mission.
So the focus needs to shift away from just balancing time slots towards focusing intensely on your own definition of success. What does it actually mean to you?
Exactly. Because if you base your life choices on what other people think, on external validation, maybe you adopt your friend's idea of a successful family schedule, or you aim for an income level because it looks good publicly.
You're setting yourself up for frustration.
Chronic dissatisfaction, yeah, because it's not your target. That internal validation, knowing your own why and your own what, that's the anchor for personal evolution.
And what gets in the way of keeping that internal focus?
The biggest internal hurdle. It's the ego.
The ego. We usually think of that as like arrogance, big-headedness.
It can be.
Yeah.
But the source details its sneakier function, protection. Yeah. The ego's primary job is often just to protect you.
Protect me from what? How does that limit success?
Well, the ego hates being wrong.
Yeah.
It hates looking foolish. And most of all, it absolutely dreads failing in public.
Okay, I can see that.
And that fear, it doesn't just stop people from taking necessary risks. It also stops them from seeking out necessary information. It stops you from asking those clarifying, maybe beginner questions, because asking implies you don't already know. It makes you afraid to admit ignorance.
So it blocks learning.
It blocks essential learning and iteration.
Yeah.
Which ultimately caps your success at whatever level the ego feels comfortable and safe. It keeps you in the known zone.
So true success requires defining your own goals, your own metrics, and then actively fighting that internal protector, the ego, that just wants to keep everything comfortable and validated from the outside.
Yeah. It means accepting that vulnerability, making mistakes, even failing sometimes. Those aren't reflections of your fundamental worth. They're just prerequisites for learning something new, for getting better.
Right.
Once you manage to minimize the ego's grip, its power over your decisions, you maximize your potential to learn and grow.
And that willingness to act, to execute, even with that fear of failure lurking, that leads us right to the final and maybe the most urgent principle in this material. Action over rumination. The source really hammers this home. Thinking without doing is the main thing that stalls personal evolution. Getting stuck in your head.
Rumination. That's often just that protective ego again, but in disguise.
How so?
Planning forever, strategizing endlessly. It can be a way to avoid the possibility of failing when you actually try to execute the plan.
Delaying the potential pain.
Exactly. The material is clear. Continuous, consistent action, even if it's imperfect action. That's the only real engine of progress. You can only adjust your course once you have actual feedback, real data from the real
Not
world,
just theory.
not just theory.
Anything.
Thinking, planning, and then acting on and optimizing even an imperfect plan is always, always better than achieving perfect paralysis through overthinking.
Always better than perfect paralysis. I like that. And this need for independent, consistent action. It takes on a whole new weight, almost an existential weight, when we consider the final point, the future impact of AI-generated content and this relentless algorithmic influence on our behavior.
Right. This is where all those internal principles defining success, battling ego, taking action, suddenly connect directly to the external world we're living in now.
Explain that connection.
Well, think about the digital environment. It's becoming saturated, absolutely flooded with hyper-optimized content, personalized content,
Yeah.
often AI-generated content. And it's designed purely to do one thing: hold your attention
Keep you scrolling, keep you clicking.
and influence your decisions, what you buy, what you believe, how you behave.
Mhm.
As that happens, the actual space for genuine, authentic, self-directed human action, it starts to shrink dramatically.
Wow. So if the algorithms are built to grab our attention and keep us passive,
Yeah.
just feeding us stuff instead of inspiring us to create something ourselves or do something, then that tendency to ruminate, to just think instead of act, it kind of gets weaponized against us.
It absolutely does. The inertia of rumination becomes the default state the environment pushes you towards.
Yeah.
That's why the need to define your own metrics, reject the external validation game, and execute your own mission. It becomes a critical defense mechanism.
A defense against being passively programmed.
Precisely. If you don't have clearly defined personal goals and you don't have that consistent bias towards taking action, the environment, the algorithms, will very happily supply goals for you.
Goals that benefit the platform, though, not necessarily your own growth.
Exactly. Goals that benefit the platform, not your evolution. You risk becoming purely reactive, just responding to whatever external stuff is curated for you, instead of being an agent of your own change, driving your own life forward.
That is quite the synthesis. Okay. So, bringing it all together, what does this mean for you, the listener, right now?
We've distilled, I think, 3 huge takeaways from this deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
First, real success starts when you define your own metrics. Stop chasing external validation. Second, you've got to learn to leverage your perceived weaknesses. See them as freedom for aggressive, maybe nonlinear growth.
That unique advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And third, critically,
Yeah.
your environment dictates your behavior much more than your willpower probably does. Change the context.
Mhm.
So the advice is, apply these principles immediately, like today.
Mhm.
Use them to break that cycle of just thinking about things, the rumination.
Take a first step.
Set those single-step barriers we talked about. Make bad habits harder. Set up those micro rewards for instant feedback on good actions. And please, do not let that protective ego convince you that more planning is the same as actually doing something. It's not.
Go take that first concrete step, however small. And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with, connecting all this internal work back to that external environment we just discussed. If real success requires taking consistent action over just thinking about it, how do we make sure our actions stay authentic? How do we ensure they're really directed towards our own personal, deeply defined goals? When our attention, our environment, is increasingly curated, shaped, and influenced by external algorithms that are optimized purely for our passive consumption.
That's the question to wrestle with as you step back into the world.
Something to think about.
Definitely. Well, thank you for joining us for this analysis of these principles for personal evolution.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for the next deep dive.